was saying, thanks very much for coming. So this is the first time we've tried to do Sector Connector online, so please do bear with us. You know, it's new for us all, the digital revolution of what we've got to do, and this is part of actually why it was a really good opportunity to do this in Get Online Week, because it isn't just about individuals getting online, it's about businesses, it's about the voluntary community group. And yes, we know it doesn't solve 100% of the problems, but we've got to work with what we've got at the moment, and we've all been trialing Zoom and trialing Teams and trialing all of these new ways to continue to connect to the people that we serve or the people that we work with, or supply services, support products to. So just thanks for giving it a try, and you know, we really want your feedback about how it goes. I'm not going to suggest this is going to be perfect. It's very much trial and error Sector Connector, but it's nice to see lots of friendly faces. I know you'll bear with us. So yeah, so a bit of background about Sector Connector in case you've not been before. The council, myself at the Goodness Collective, and initially it was Equity Housing and Stockport Homes who were also involved, decided that we needed to do more to support the voluntary and community sector to make connections with local businesses, and that actually it benefits us all when we work together. And I think a lot of it goes on anyway, but it's like a lot of the voluntary community sector were saying, well, we don't know how to meet businesses, we don't know how to have those conversations, we don't know what to say. Even in a couple of the very first Sector Connectors, we talked about actually what is it that we want from businesses, what is it that we need support with, and it isn't always about money and resources. Sometimes it's time, sometimes it's expertise, sometimes it's mentoring, which I know on this call there's a few of you who've given you time to support some social leaders. So it's kind of actually how do we bring you together and how do we create useful conversations locally for the benefit of everyone. So that's kind of where it came from, and we have had 4 in-person events. All have been oversubscribed, so it obviously still is wanted and hoped for. So I think the very last one we did was just before we went into lockdown, which there was about 70 people turned up at that. It was a really busy one, and we had Richard from Marketing Stockport and Becky from Supportability who both presented. What we're going to have today is Rollington Knitwear. Nicola and Donald are here somewhere. I've already spotted them come in. Hello. We'll hear from them shortly, and they've been doing some great work. And also Ryan from Start Point and Starting Point. He will talk about it from a social enterprise perspective, and both of them will be talking to you about how they've done things differently and digitally is kind of the tagline of this event. You know, how do we work differently and digitally, and what support is there out there, and how do we support one another in that, and a bit like today, how do we test that stuff in a safe place and learn from each other to figure that out. So there are some people from the council here who've been brilliant at supporting this. Henrika and Will on the back sorting out all the events and and helping us get this off the ground, and Joe and Thad are here as well. And I know Joe Foskett has got a lot of pressure on her today because of the new tier 3 lockdown measures, so I know that she'd like to have a word with you before she has to dash off. Is that okay, Joe? You're on mute at the moment.
Sorry, I'm so unfamiliar with Zoom. I'm going up to the mute button and it's down. Apologies, yeah. No, I mean, I don't say I want to have a word with you before I rush off. I absolutely want to stay for the morning and see how this goes, because I'm absolutely intrigued to see how this experiment goes. But as Simone said, you know, this is our attempt at supporting cross-sector networking. It's our attempt at helping you meet people that you wouldn't normally meet in your everyday life, and probably in your everyday life at the moment, you meet even less people than you would normally. So networking has never been more important, but possibly never more challenging. And it's really important that we try to make this session as interactive as possible, that people use the chat function to introduce themselves, to take connections away, in the same way that if we were in a nice meeting room and I was providing you with a nice lunch and lots of mingling time, you'd hopefully be swapping names and business cards, starting to think about what you might be able to do collaboratively with other people, what you might be able to share, how you might be able to support someone else and how they might be able to support you. But as Simone says, we've never done this virtually before, so it is a huge experiment for us. And we really hope you bear with us and give us some feedback about how it might work in the future, because we really don't want the fact that we aren't physically able to connect to stop us connecting. And actually we want to find ways possibly to connect between events, because events are great, but they're a moment in time, and digital could be even better because it could allow us to keep those connections going between sessions. But obviously that's only as good as our confidence in the platforms and the different technologies that we've got. And I will very openly say at the beginning of lockdown, I didn't think I was particularly, a digital dinosaur, but I found out quite quickly that I was. I found out that I didn't know how to work Zoom. I found out that if I went on a Teams call for the first week of lockdown, I had to put my computer on its side because it was the only way my camera projected right. And I've got an IT department on the end of the phone at the council, and I know how many barriers I came up against. So I know how important it is when you're a small business or a social enterprise or a community or voluntary organisation that maybe doesn't have that infrastructure, to find other people who might have those skills that they can support you with, but also to recognise that maybe you've got some skills that you can support them with. And we've banded it around in Stockport a lot lately, this mantra of one Stockport, and that we are all in this together. But I think it's really important that we do try to make that real, and that we do try to come together as one Stockport and really share practical ways of supporting each other, so that we can sort of come out of this stronger and more resilient maybe than we sometimes feel when we're isolated in a spare bedroom or a conservatory working away with our limited technology or sometimes in my case limited skills. So we really hope that this session can be useful in helping us all think about how we can work differently and better together. Thanks, Simone.
Brilliant. No problem, thank you. And thanks for as long as you can stay, and if you've got to dash, that's fine. If anyone's got any questions for Jo, we can forward them on in terms of the council perspective, but there are a couple of other people here from the council. So for those people who joined a bit later, we are recording the session, so if you do have an issue with your face being shown, you can switch your screen off, and that's what I'm just going to do first is I'm just going to show you a quick overview of the agenda. There's nothing worse than being sat here thinking what's coming. I don't know what we're going to be doing next, so I shall do that now, hopefully. Okay, so can we see that? Yeah. I've got too many things open, but I don't want to close my breakout rooms in case I lose them. So so today, obviously, brews and settling as we arrived, intros from myself and Jo. We're going to go into Zoom tips and tricks with Claire next, because there is that thing, as Jo was just saying, that some of us are further along the journey. Some have straight away had to figure all this out and have been doing it for a little while, even though it's not perfect. We're starting to figure out our way around Zoom. So for those of you who are fairly new to it, hopefully that will help a little bit for you just to get the most out of today's session and navigate how to use Zoom with a few pointers. And then we're going to have a case study from Ryan from Start Point and Starting Point. You always confuse me with those two things, Ryan, so you can tell us a bit about the difference between the two. And then, as I said, Nicola and Donald from Rowlandson. Then we're going to take a quick break at 11 just so you can refill those brews, have a stretch, go to the loo, whatever it is you need to do. But if we could come back for breakouts for 10 past 11, that will give me the time to make sure everyone is in a room with some different people. So we're going to try and recreate that cross-sector networking that you would be getting if you were at a physical event. And you will have a facilitator in the room to support you, so you're not just going to be thrown there on your own. And then the facilitator, well, everyone will come back, but the facilitators will feed back to the room. And then we're going to have a session from Lee Emery at Stockport Council, who's in the Digital by Design team, and again Ryan and a bit from myself about what is the digital support that's available to you, what campaigns are going on, what can you get involved in. And then we're going to have a bit of an interactive session before we close that Ryan will be leading on, around getting some more views from yourself, finding out what's next, finding out what else we need. So any questions about that, pop them in the chat. I will stop sharing that, and we will pass over to Claire, where I can't see. Oh, there you are. There's too many people on this screen. Usually I can find you. So yeah, take it away, Claire.
Okay, hi, I'm Claire Worthington. Now, a lot of you will already know me, and depending on where you met me will depend on what you know me as. So sometimes I'm Claire from the Goodness Collective, so I think that's my official hat today. Some of you will know me as Claire from the Village Web Company, because when I do get round to updating my Twitter and my Facebook and my business stuff, that's kind of what I'm known as. And some of you will know me as Claire from Space, because I'm one of the people who helps run the Space ADHD group. So depending on what I'm doing, sometimes depends on what hoodie I'm wearing. But essentially, I'm always Claire, I'm always about, and the hair changes every few weeks. So if I look completely differently to the last time you saw me, don't let it faze you, it's still me. Okay, so here we are in the wonderful world of Zoom. And I feel that we've all at that point now where we've all been using it for a while. Okay, the noise you can hear in the background is the dog. So the first thing about Zoom is, does everyone know how to mute and unmute? Now, I thought I was kind of on safe ground because the postman's already been, but apparently somebody's walked past and now they've reactivated him. German Shepherds may well be 2 floors away, but they like to make themselves known. So if anybody's not sure about how to mute and unmute themselves, there's a little picture, a little icon of a microphone. So if you press that, so at that point, you will have seen my lips moving and absolutely no noise. So if your dog is an idiot, the mute button will be your best friend. If you're out in your car, if you're out and about, if your children are just outside the room you're working in and have started World War III, the mute button is definitely the one for you. Now, the other thing that I think is a useful thing for people to know about is how to rename yourself on Zooms. So for example, this session in a minute is going to be recorded. If you're being recorded and you'd rather not have your name on there, so obviously we're using this in a fairly professional sense, so it kind of doesn't matter. But it might be that you're on a Zoom quiz, it might be that you're taking part in something else where you'd rather not share that many details. Being able to change the name that displays in front of your Zoom screen might be something that's useful. So because I'm allegedly the fun one, we figured we'd try doing this as an actual interactive thing. So your mission is to rename yourself at the moment as any character from a soap opera. So you can go Coronation Street, you can go EastEnders, you can go Dallas and Dynasty if you've not watched TV since the 80s. So for anybody who doesn't know where to find that, if you're using a mobile phone, somewhere at the bottom where you have the menus, you should have 3 little dots and hopefully the word more. Somewhere in that you should have the option to rename. So if you're using a phone, that's where you find it. If you're using a laptop computer, there's normally an icon of a picture of a video camera. So next to that should be a little kind of, I think it's Chevron is its official name, kind of half a triangle. If you press that, that should give you some more options, including your video settings. And somewhere in there, no, ignore that. This is the bit where it all starts to go horribly wrong. Right.
I love that I'm now co-hosting this meeting with Phil and Grant Mitchell. I've got the Mitchell brothers either side of me, supporting me. What more do you need?
I can see Madge Ramsey. That's a good start. So earlier this week, I did my first ever Facebook Live, and it all went horribly, horribly wrong. At the moment, I'm getting slight flashbacks of that because despite practicing this in my dressing gown literally 5 minutes before I came on, can't find the thing where it tells you how to change your name. Right, is there anybody on there who's not found it? Oh, Arthur Daly's with us. Charlene's there. We've got a bit of representation from Neighbours. Bet Lynch, loving the 80s Corrie reference. Hilda Ogden's with us.
Oh, Curly Watts, that's I like the way everyone's gone for the old ones. I haven't got a clue of any who's on the soaps these days. I like that Steve's put, I don't watch soaps. Oh, boo.
In that case, if you don't watch soaps and you genuinely don't know the names of any, then I'm going to let you go with a film character. But I love the fact that Rita from Corrie's here as well, because Rita was always one of my favourite characters. She always looked so glamorous when I was a little girl.
I can't find it. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, can Grant Mitchell or somebody else who's done it?
Yeah, so when I hover over the little camera of my face, I get 3 dots. I click on those 3 dots and I get like an option, mute my audio, stop video, rename, pin. So I just clicked on rename there and it's given me the chance to be a Mitchell brother.
Yeah. Is there anyone on a laptop who's found it? Oh.
Yeah, I'm on a laptop. I found it.
Yeah. So whereabouts was it on yours? Because I think we've got a couple of us who can't find it.
So if you go on to your, if you look at your picture on the screen in the little box, your own picture, if you
there it
go
was.
to the top right, you'll see the 3 dots, and it's just there. So go in your own picture, top right, 3 dots, click on that, and it'll give you the options of more, and it'll show you there.
Thank you, Bet Lynch.
Pleasure.
Ina Sharples, there's an old one.
As you can tell, I've not watched Coronation Street for quite some time, so I've had to go with those ones.
Oh, we've got a Sue Ellen. So we've gone from the English soaps to, is that a bit of Dallas, Sue Ellen?
Yeah. Oh, we've got the Wizard of Oz with us, so we've clearly got a non-soap person.
That'll be Steve.
So although we've done it in a fun way, and although it has like literally tried to stitch me up again, just like Facebook did earlier this week, the good news is that now that you know where those buttons are, if you're on a Zoom call and you've decided actually it's helpful for people to perhaps, rather than knowing my surname, to know that I'm Claire from the Goodness Collective, you can rename yourself. If you're sharing a computer with somebody else and maybe you need to use the same Zoom account, so Rachel and Nigel, it's fine. But if Rachel's on one, she'd probably rather people stop calling her Nigel. But it means that now that you know where that button is, now that we've eventually found it, you can rename yourself if you need to. And also, if it's a case of privacy and you'd rather people just didn't know, you can change that to your initials, change it to the company you're with, or just change it to a full stop and leave it blank. The main thing is it's about being able to use the tools that we've got in a way that's useful. So since this is like a professional meeting, we should probably change our names back, which is also a good way to make sure that we still remember how to do it. So if you're using a laptop, if you hover over your picture, that's where your 3 dots are. If you're using a mobile phone, it should be where the menus are. So you'll have 3 dots and you tap that and you can change yourself back to your real name or the name of your organisation or whatever suits for the occasion that you're on. How am I doing for time, Simone?
Yeah, you've got a few minutes.
Okay, well, in that case then, I'm going to tell you about how to change your background, because I'm sure you've all been on at least one Zoom session with somebody who appears to be in either San Francisco or somewhere else that's really glamorous. So you have an option to change that as well. So it's back in the same place, and you should have an option near your video if you're on a laptop. where it says choose virtual background. Now, the one thing that I would say is that if your computer is perhaps, so like I'm using like quite an old Mac computer, and it's not the latest version, and it does not understand the concept of a virtual background. So it'll let me do it, but the effects are not brilliant. So I'm going to do that just to show you how awful it is. Yeah, that's probably not my best look. I did a Zoom quiz once, and I'd chosen the lovely multicolored Post-it notes in the background. And as it got darker and darker in the room, I sort of melted further and further into the Post-it notes. But it is quite a useful tool if you can get it to not make you look as horrific as I'm doing at the moment, if you don't particularly want people to be able to see what's going on in the background. So, for example, I'm sort of using this now in like my sort of office, which is my spare bedroom. It's not great. It's a small room and I've got an awful lot of stuff in it. So we've got the wall planner over here, but everything else over there probably shouldn't be in view. So if it wasn't for the fact that I'm using an old iMac, I would probably be using a virtual background to sort of screen out a little bit of the stuff that's going on behind. But it's useful to have an idea. Tina, if you're looking for it, if you're using a PC and you've got the icon at the bottom with the camcorder, it should be next to there.
I'm loving Helena's background. I want to be there, Helena. I want to be on that beach with you right now with a cocktail in hand.
Give me 5 minutes.
Ryan, what was that one you had?
Yeah, they don't work as well if you've got a busy background, so I couldn't set it. So there's a little bit that says video filters.
Right.
So you can, yeah, rather than doing a background, you can give yourself like a party hat or sunglasses. So there's a party hat.
Oh yeah, there we go. I like it. So it's like a oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's kind of actually, Claire, for some of these things, it is just having a play, isn't it? Figuring out what the buttons are before you get online and actually lightening it up a bit, because I think we go to a lot of things that feel a bit stale, I think, online. I don't know if you're all zoomed and teamed out yet, but actually sometimes just breaking it up. I can see Claire at home instead having loads of fun there with her background. You might have just introduced their office now to something that's going to take up a lot of time.
I'll give a little demo of how to do it as well, and then that can be shared afterwards. So if anybody couldn't find it at the time, or if you need a reminder because you might not do it for a couple of weeks, I'll do a set of, this is where it is on a laptop, this is where it is on a mobile phone, so that you can have a play with it later.
Yeah, and Rachel's got a ninjas ready to help her out now at the back. That's brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Claire. And I suppose part of this is also, obviously, if you're supporting other people, whether it's colleagues at work, whether it is, you know, that you're running a support group for someone, whether you're like Beth and you're running things with young people, it kind of helping them to use the tools. If you can use them, obviously it helps to engage people who feel a bit unsure. And I think there's that thing about not having the expectation that everybody knows how to do this stuff. And some of those very basics like muting and unmuting and changing your name are really key, and should be included in things that you do so that you don't exclude people. Right, okay, Ryan, I think it's time to go over to you for your case study and tell us a little bit about Start Point and Starting Point and your journey from doing differently and digitally.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I'm glad that you mentioned that confusion around Start Point and Starting Point. We're 11 years old in July and there are still people who do not know the difference. So it's always good for us to remind. So a little bit of a background on both Start Point and Starting Point. So we're based on Woodley Precinct. Start Point is the coffee shop. Starting Point, the team in the back room in the coffee shop that do the community stuff. So the history of Start Point and Starting Point is when the recession hit in 2009. Anne Wallace, who's the chief exec, She also owns the fish and chip shop Taylor's on the precinct, and the precinct was really struggling. Shops were closing, and from speaking to customers and the staff team at the time, they said, people want a place to meet, people want a place that they can go meet with their friends, meet with their family, and so she spoke to the council and Stockport Homes and was able to open up Start Point Coffee Shop. So Start Point Coffee Shop is a not-for-profit social enterprise, and from the profits of the coffee, the profits are then put into Starting Point, who then effectively are like the charitable arm of the coffee shop and do the good stuff with those profits. Now, we're not a charity, we are a social enterprise, but for us, we realised very quickly that the coffee shop was a meeting place, and that there was quite a lot of social isolation issues being tackled in the coffee shop. And then Nicola, my colleague, had always worked in digital and worked in teaching, and kind of identified a bit of a gap that she felt that, there's another way we could tackle social isolation, not just through coffee, but actually through computers. And so we joined the Online Centre Network, 10 years ago. So it's been a long and varied journey. Before the pandemic hit, Starting Point, so the bit that I work for as a training officer at Starting Point, we were already tackling digital. We were already, helping people get online for the first time, and we wanted to offer that non-threatening, community-based, informal adult education. And like I said, we've been doing that for a number of years. Part of this was about us offering that spaces, places, and faces. We were able to, be in people's communities, working with local people to offer them, a really non-threatening, open environment for them to come along and not just get online, but to stay online long term. And we were able to offer them data, devices, and digital champions. They could come along to these community centres, these outreach centres. It might be in Edgeley, it could be in Bridlington, it could be in Bridge Hall. And we were able to say to them, here's some internet, here's a digital champion, here's a laptop or a tablet, let us support you to get online. And then obviously we also decent coffee. Apparently I don't like coffee. People always say to me, oh, you're so lucky, I bet you drink. I was like, no, I'm a tea man. So it's a bit wasted on me that we've got a fancy smancy coffee machine on the wall behind me when I'm in the office. I'm at home today, so I've got to brew it myself. That's even worse. But then the pandemic hit and everything changed for us. So firstly, Taylor's Fish and Chip Shop and Start Point Coffee Shop had to close. We weren't able to be open. And Starting Point had to look at how we can offer places, faces, and spaces, and data, devices, and digital champions whilst not being in the same room as people. So for Start Point Coffee Shop, they very quickly became the hub of a lot of community activity going on in the area. So I know that my colleagues Nicola, Hayley, and James have worked with the likes of Rachel from the Cherry Project there, around supporting their communities with activity bags and family cooking programs. For a while it was like a social supermarket. The coffee shop, all the tables and chairs had been moved, and there was more food than we knew what to do with, that we were getting out on doorstep depots and creating food parcels to get out to people in the community who were shielding. We had a 24/7 COVID coronavirus community helpline that was being manned by James and Hayley. So even though the coffee shop closed, they were still really active and really involved in doing stuff in the community and continuing to tackle social isolation. For us at Starting Point, we took a couple of weeks off, for want of a better phrase, where we trained ourselves and our digital champions on how to use Zoom. And I feel like 7 months in, I'm still learning how to do things on Zoom, so I don't know how well we did. But we kind of took a couple of weeks out and thought to ourselves, right, how can we continue to offer this non-threatening, informal, friendly, safe environment, but at a time when people are maybe being forced online more than they would like to just get online, and at a time when people are potentially quite nervous and having to complete transactions they've never wanted to do online before, but they feel they've got to, and then all the other pressures that everybody's been going through, trying to juggle everyday life in this weird new world we live in. How can we continue to be that place for these people? So myself and the digital champion spent a little bit of time exploring Zoom and exploring what will work and what won't work. And then, since then we have been doing Zoom classes every week since about the beginning of April. I think we do some just under 40 Zoom classes a month, kind of themed learning topics, everyone about something different, everything from, you know, getting to grips with a touchscreen device to creating an email account, all the way up to even looking at things like online banking. Although I do notice when we tell people we're doing online banking, the numbers of attendees just drop a little bit, as I think, pandemic or not, they're not interested in doing online banking for some people. My granddad won't get his wallet out near a computer in case it like sucks it through a USB slot and steals all his money. So yeah, it's been a varied response to some of the sessions, but yeah, overall I'd say just under 40 sessions a month, and they're just the themed sessions. We spoke to our digital champions. We did a call out for additional digital champions. We're now just 20, 30 odd digital champions who we've been able to buddy up with learners. So we were able to bring all our learners that come to all our sessions and offer them the chance to, you know, attend a Zoom class, attend multiple Zoom classes. They used to only attend one community session, but now they can attend multiple Zooms to be buddied up with a digital champion. So should something go wrong, should they all of a sudden realise I need to do my car tax and I can't get to the post office to ask the person behind the counter what I do, how can I do this? You know, to give somebody a lifeline, to give somebody an option to ring and say, please help, what can I do with this? And then bleeding a little bit into talking around some of the stuff that Lee and myself are going to talk around later on. We were able to set up a digital helpline to offer a number, a kind of a one-stop shop number for people to call from all over Stockport with, you know, referrals for people who might want to come to the Zoom classes, people wanting to become digital champions. If you've downloaded an app and you don't know how to use it, if you're stuck trying to remember your library login, people are able to ring this number, get through to myself or another member of Starting Point staff, and we can hopefully point them in the right direction. We were able to receive some funding for a lending library. So again, it touches a little bit on what Lee will talk about more later on, but we worked out that the spaces, places and faces, well, the space can be Zoom. We can use that. The place they do it will unfortunately have to be in their homes, but the faces are the familiar faces. They're the people that they knew that they used to come to the face-to-face classes with. And then the data devices, digital champions. We knew there was an issue around data and around people maybe not having devices, but for a lot of people, this pandemic has exacerbated the digital divide. And I know that there was always this talk of 1 in 5 people not having digital skills. So we think Stockport's got nearly 300,000 people, so that's about 60,000 maybe. It's quite a big number. And according to a report last week, which Greater Manchester Combined Authorities released, they think the number could actually be much larger than that. So for us to be able to think, right, how can we help these people who are now trapped behind the door, who relied on us for data, relied on us for devices, and relied on us for that digital support. So we had to think about our offer and how we could do that. So we applied to the Stockport Local Fund. So thank you if anybody's here from the Stockport Local Fund. But I think currently there's about 100 devices out in homes in Stockport. So 100 devices, however many indirect people, it could be a couple of hundred people are indirectly benefiting from this, kind of data devices and digital champion program that we've developed over the last couple of months. And then, yeah, so that's kind of Start Point's journey. Start Point is now back open. We've all of a sudden had to learn how to do QR code scanning. Anybody who's been out anywhere, you've got to scan the NHS app or fill in a SurveyMonkey form. And if you go to the pub, you have to order it on the table. I mean, I quite like not going standing at the bar, actually. It's not a problem for me. But all of a sudden, there's all this new technology that we're presumed to be able to use. I remember QR codes kind of 5 or 6 years ago and thinking, oh, they'll never catch on. Nobody will ever use those. Now, the moment you leave the house, you feel like you've got a QR code your door to let somebody know you're going somewhere. So yeah, Start Point is back open. Taylor's Fish and Chip Shop's back open. But again, we have to look at our offer and think we were able to open, but we weren't able to have customers in at one point. So the team at Starting Point were able to support some of the work at Taylor's Fish and Chip Shop around them, their website, being able to do an online menu, being able to do click and collect, being able to order deliveries. So even though as an organisation, we'd always worked around digital, the coffee shop doesn't have an app. And the fish and chip shop had always had a website, but wasn't able to order deliveries or click and collect. So if you'd have said to us in 5 years' time, will you do deliveries? Will you do click and collect? I don't know if we'd have said yeah. I think we'd have thought, actually, no, people come to the chippy. We know people like that community aspect, sitting with friends and family and having something to eat, or meeting up with their friends and having a coffee. But all of a sudden, that was taken away from us. And luckily, as an organisation, we had some of the digital skills and resilience to be able to introduce digital methods to achieve the same things. But we know that not every organisation was in that space and place. So we've also been able to support other organisations and reach out to other community groups that we know, and there's some familiar faces in this call here, and say, you know, how are you doing things? What's changed? Have you been doing classes? How did Facebook Live go the other day? I'm glad that Claire tried it first and not me. I thought about it and I have no idea how it works. So after texting you and asking you how it's gone, I don't think I'm going to try anytime soon. I think I'll stick to Zoom. But yeah, so that's kind of our story over the last 10 years, but then over the last couple of months, that, you know, we were quite lucky to already have digital embedded in what we do, but it was part of what we do. You know, we sell fish and chips, we sell coffee, we help people get online, but they were three linked things, but still quite separate. And then we realised that actually, when we can't physically sell people coffee, what can we use that space for? You know, we were able to create a Facebook group with over 1,000 people now in the Bredbury and Woodley Community Neighbours Facebook group, that were leaning on each other for support and helping each other out during the pandemic and the lockdown. So yeah, for us, it was quite an obvious step to adopt digital, but yeah, it's not always the easiest thing. So that's our story, I suppose.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Ryan. We've got a few minutes left, so has anyone got any questions for Ryan? I mean, obviously there'll be the time at the end as well to ask general stuff, but is anything specifically around what Ryan's done at Start Point and Starting Point that you'd like to hear a bit more about?
I'd like to comment on, and I've worked with a few gentlemen being linked in with Ryan, and some of the work they've been doing there is fantastic. I recently got 3 guys on the Men Matter programme. I know Ryan's involved with a colleague of mine doing the Digino stuff, so I just like to say it's a really good service, and I'd encourage anybody who's not too sure on how to use IT skills to get involved.
Thanks for mentioning Men Matters there. I hope Hayley never watches this recording, because she'll realise I've just completely forgot all the stuff she does. So yeah, Hayley, my colleague, was also doing a big skills sharing project, and she's been doing it for about 18 months now. And again, that was in community venues. It was in an allotment. It was in different community buildings all throughout the borough. And then all of a sudden that got taken away. So yeah, things like Men Matters, and there's one called Light, which is around women and their mental health. Was really important before this pandemic, but again, it's exacerbated some of the inequalities that people are feeling in our communities. So Hayley being able to offer some of that stuff online has been a real lifesaver for quite a lot of people.
Brilliant, thank you. And Nadia has said, excellent case study. We're about to start a social cafe in Heaton Norris. She'd love to connect with you to learn a bit more about how to get some support with that, Ryan. So that would be great. Julia, do you want to come on and ask that question?
Yeah, I was just wondering how much people know about the charitable work that Starting Point do when they come to the cafe or use the chip shop. Like, are they aware that they're feeding into that, or do they just use it because it's a service that they want to use?
So I think initially when people, a random person walks by, they aren't aware. Probably just think we're a small independent coffee shop. Probably don't understand why there's so many fish and chip shop staff in a coffee shop. They're probably thinking, what's going on there? Does their boss know that they're in here and they're getting paid? Not realising it's the same person. But yeah, I think we have a message on the wall. A few years ago, we went on a pilgrimage to Start Point Lighthouse, which is what we're named after. So Start Point's a lighthouse up in Scotland. It was the first lighthouse in Scotland in the Orkneys to have a full 360-degree revolving light. And we want to be that 360-degree revolving light. We also want to be people's starting point. So when, there is a pun intended there when we use that. And when we were on the way back down, we got speaking to, he's actually the manager in a fish and chip shop, Jamie, and he said, we're trying to think of a tagline to explain to people who we are and why we do what we do. And he came up with the idea of, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy coffee. So we've got that kind of quite prominently on the wall, because for us, we do want people to get our social values as a reason why we are who we are. So we try to make that as apparent as we can. We do get people sometimes, there'll be somebody sat outside the coffee shop and go, oh, hello, I've not seen you before. And they go, yeah, how long have you been open? You're quite new. And you're like, no, 10, 11 years. And they're like, oh, I live just up the road near the Navigation pub. I never knew you were a coffee shop. You think, well, what did you think we were? It says Start Point Coffee Shop. There's people sat outside with cappuccinos. We can't be much else other than a coffee shop, surely. But yeah, I mean, I would love for us to be able to get the message out more and more. But yeah, I think that message of you can't buy happiness, but you can buy coffee. So hopefully that gets over our social values and our ethos quite quickly when people come in.
And I love as well, Ryan, that you say, what is it about? We don't filter people, we filter coffee. I think that's brilliant. Love it.
We're good for a punny tagline, something to do with fishing or coffee or something like that. We're all good for that.
Everyone loves a good pun. That's fantastic. Thanks very much. And there will be chance again later on to, once you've kind of heard from everybody, to bring some of these questions together. And sometimes we just need to sit with what we've heard before we kind of figure out what it is that will be helpful to us, or what it is that we want to share. So take that time to towards the end to put in the chat, and Ryan will be doing some interactive stuff with you towards the end of the session if it all goes well. So you'll have an opportunity to do that then too. So I'd love to introduce now Nicola and Donald from Rowlinson Knitwear, one of my favourite organisations in Stockport. I'm not just saying that because you're here. I'm sure other people have heard me mention you before. But I'll let you do the talking about what it is that you do, and again, how you've worked differently and digitally. And I think what's really key for people to hear is when we talk about corporate social responsibility, that bit about giving back, and also social value, that is as much about what we do with our colleagues, because Donald doesn't like the word staff, but the people that work with us, how do we support them? Because often they will be local people. So I know that Nicola and Donald have been doing a lot over at Rowlinson Knitwear to support their colleagues as much as they have the rest of the community. So can't wait to hear. Thanks.
Thanks, Simone. I'm just going to share my screen with you because I've got some slides. So one moment.
Please do.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, fab.
It's not showing though as your presentation, it's showing as your, so you've not started the presentation. I can see the whole presentation, if that makes sense. It's not on slideshow.
Just let me give this a whirl one more time, and I'm just going to put it into present.
While you're doing that, Beth just said, Ryan, great work at Start Point. She's looking forward to connecting with you. And I think that's what I love about this sector. And I know I harp on to you all about the time, is that we're all really willing to support one another. And I really love seeing those cross-project opportunities that we create.
Yes, Simone, it's so true, like what you always say, the idea of coming to things like Sector Connector, and I know the Youth Partnership meeting as well. We've had so many opportunities that have come about through those, so thank you as ever for making them happen.
Oh, thank you. I've paid you as well. Right, thanks. And yeah, Nicola, we can see that now.
Fab, thank you. So good morning, everybody, and thanks for having us. You've got myself and Donald today. We're like a double act, like a comedy double act, but probably not very funny, I don't think. But we're going to take you on a bit of a journey for us here at Rowlinson Knitwear and the kind of things that we've put in place historically and also through the pandemic. We have been in Stockport since 1935. And there's just shy of 60 of us now based in Stockport. We're just up near McVitie's. My role in the business is that I am director of colleague support, and I have a really lovely job where I just get to support our people and help them to kind of be their best and feel happy at work. I've been with the business for 14 years, And I feel very lucky to have been witness to a lot of the changes that Donald and I are going to share with you today. I'm also from Stockport, born and raised in Stockport, and I grew up in Brinnington. And I've been really lucky, I think, and really grateful to have received support actually at various times in my life from many of the wonderful services that Stockport has got to offer as well. So a little bit then about what we're going to cover with you today. So we're going to talk a little bit about who we were before, because even in the midst of what's happened recently, we've been on quite a journey. We're going to tell you about who we are now. We're going to tell you about the impact of the Rona, as we like to call it, on our business and how we've adapted. We're going to do some lessons from the politicians and just any general lessons that we've learned along the way, because we've always got loads to learn, and then share any final thoughts with you. So over to you, Donald.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, what on earth can we learn from somebody that sells jumpers? Then we do have some credentials. And but first of all, let me apologize for being boring and old and not very photogenic. But what can I do, really? So anyway, we're the first B Corp in Scotland, and a B Corp is a business that legally balances people, profit or prosperity, and planet. And there's about 3,500 companies in the world. It's the highest verified standard for environmental and social performance. We're the highest scoring B Corp in the north of England and Scotland. That happened in August. We're really proud of it. We became employee owned in 2015, having been in family ownership since 1935, so that's like 80 years or something. And well, we did it because we don't like fat cats, and we want to share more profits amongst all our people, and we wanted it to be a place where everyone benefited, so that's what we did. We were one of the first 6 invited members of the Good Employment Charter, the Andy Burnham Initiative. We're really pleased about that. We were named as 17th best place to work by the Great Place to Work, and more impressively, the 5th best place for women. So that's really good for the female contingent anyway. It's pretty horrible for the blokes, but what can you do? We've won some awards: Stockport Employer of the Year 3 times, Investment in People. Last week we won Best Company of the Planet Mark Awards, which is for our carbon reduction. We've won a couple of awards with the Institute Directors, with the Employee Ownership Association, commended by the Home Office for our modern day slavery statements, and by the Department for International Development, which the government have shamefully got rid of for our work in saving lives and improving health in Bangladesh. So there are credentials. And Nick's going to take us to the next slide, which is very confusing because, take your time, Nick.
Sorry. There you go.
Right, so apologies for all that nonsense on there. So bottom left is where we worked, and bottom right, a bit like a prison, no lights, really bad working conditions. And I think one of the things that you might learn from us is if wherever you are at the minute and whatever situation you're in, it can be so much better. It doesn't have to be like that, really. So loads of money, bosh, bish, bosh, bash is, well, we don't like him for a start. And our reference is that quite a while ago at Rollinson, everybody was greedy. Like the owners were greedy, but so were all the workers, because everyone was paid on the amount of work that they did. So that led to selfishness, and nobody cared about anyone else, didn't care about customers. It was horrible, really. Fat Cat, obviously, that's one of our themes. Homer Simpson, because he's trying to headbutt someone. And in my first year at the company, there were 3 fights. Somebody headbutted somebody, somebody threw an iron bar at someone, and somebody smashed a bottle over somebody's head. This isn't like outside a nightclub. This is like at work. There's a picture of a telephone because nobody could be bothered answering the phone. It was dreadful, but it doesn't have to be like that. So I've said what our credentials are. Hopefully that'll keep you wondering why we changed and how we changed from the Fat Cat, selfish, horrible prison type environment to where we are now. And Nick's going to do a great job of explaining how we did it. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you. I'm just smiling because I don't realise he'd put a picture of a fat cat in there. That really made me chuckle. So we have come a long way since then, and this just on that slide is a picture of one of our Stockport frogs. For starters, we actually have 2 of them that we purchased just over a year ago, and they take pride of place outside the front door of our fabulous brand new building that we purchased. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment, but we've really come a long way, and we've built a culture. Actually, we built a culture before becoming employee owned of trust and care, and one that people could feel really proud to be part of. And that was kind of really hard work, but I think when you've been as bad as Donald described, it kind of spurs you on actually and keeps you going to make sure that you're better and better. And when I talk about trust and care, for us that means we'll be really honest, even if we've got like difficult stuff to say, really honest about the good and the bad. And when I talk about care, I think there are loads of businesses that say that they care, but what we're talking about is real care, so that your people know it. So it's not about what you do and what you put out there, it's about what they feel and what they know. We have some fantastic benefits, all part of supporting our workforce and saying thank you to them for the terrific job that they do. So pension, we pay full pension, so nobody in our business has to do the salary sacrifice for auto enrolment, because the last thing we wanted was people seeing a reduction in their take-home pay. So they can salary sacrifice if they choose to on top of what we put in, but we put in their bit and our bit. We have a death in service benefit of 4 times salary, which is one that you don't tend to think about, but is one that has been we've used actually, and we've seen the benefit of. We sadly lost one of our colleagues just over a year ago actually, and the relief to that lady's family of being able to, you know, to kind of stay in the family home and afford funeral costs is unbelievable. And it's the lower paid that need that benefit, that really need it, that haven't got the cash if something happens like that. We are very proud to be a real living wage employer. And we pay a profit share as well. So what that means is our hardworking colleagues who are earning the profits get a share in it. And what's great, because we're employee owned, is that's tax free up to a certain amount as well. Annually, we ask our customers what they think of us, and we send out a customer satisfaction survey, and the results of that generate extra holidays for our team as well. So last year, every single person in this business got 3 days extra holidays. And we also do interest-free loans as well. And the reason why we do that is because we would hate for any of our colleagues to feel like they had to go to a payday lender, or, you know, that they had to struggle if their boiler broke or the car broke down. So we support our colleagues with that, and we support them with realistic payment plans as well, so that it doesn't like stuff them up paying us back once they've done it. That's part of what we want to do to look after them. And there have been some real improvements just as a result of genuine care for people. Our customer sat, as you can see, is up to 98%. Colleague satisfaction has risen from 34 to 100%. And the bit that I love the most is that in our annual satisfaction survey, 100% of our colleagues say that they feel proud to work for us. And we do it on Blue Monday, which for anyone who's not kind of heard of that before is usually about the third Monday in January. Everyone's skint and fed up and the weather's rubbish and it's dark when you go to work and it's dark when you come home. And we figured that if we do it on that day, people will be at their most honest, because for us, we want to learn, we want to understand how people are really feeling, and we want to learn and be better. Our profits are 7 times higher, and it sounds really cliched, but really seriously, we have seen that happy colleagues make happy customers and have fantastic relationships. And recently this business was valued at 14 million. And as I mentioned before, one of the fabulous things from becoming employee owner, from driving these changes, are that we managed to get out of our terrible building. Donald said I should use a different word than terrible, but you get the gist, where we were paying double rent to shareholders and bought our own place in Discovery Park in Stockport, where we're really proud to be. And it feels like we're set for the future. Just us here at Rollinston that kind of that have experienced the ups and downs of what the pandemic has brought. So for us, the first thing that happened to us was the retailers closed. Then next, the schools closed. And of course, we are a schoolwear provider. That's our core business. And so very quickly, we had 80% of our colleagues furloughed, and we had a skeleton team running the business and running the day-to-day operations of the business. We kind of wondered what on earth was going on, but of course you dust yourself off, don't you, and you carry on and you find a way. And I think the kind of key thing for as an employer is, thank goodness for the furlough scheme, really, because what it meant for us was that we were able to protect people. So when we furloughed 80% of our colleagues, we prioritised our most vulnerable. So anyone with a pre-existing health condition who was maybe more susceptible to the effects of the virus, and anybody who was getting public transport to work, we furloughed those guys first, and we made the most of our multi-skilling in other areas of the business so that we could support those people before anyone else. And I think as time went on and as we went through lockdown and all of those things, we were really worried about our people who perhaps lived alone. I think for many of our team, working at Rollinston is about so much more than the job, and it's about the interaction and the spending time with each other and looking out for each other. So we were really worried about loneliness. We were really worried about those colleagues who didn't have a garden, and you know the weather was gorgeous and everyone was allowed out once a day, and that's really tricky. If you've got no garden and it's and you've got a family maybe at home, that's really tough for people. So we were really worried about those, and we were worried about the finances as well of our people. And so what we did actually was our leadership team took a reduction in salary so that we could make up the pay of colleagues who were furloughed to 90% of their full pay, because we really want to look after those people. And I guess the only thing I wanted to add on that was, to be honest, this work from home debate really did our heads in, because there are loads of people who just can't work from home, and they seemed forgotten. This big workforce who for us are our hardworking warehouse colleagues, our production colleagues, who nobody talked about or thought about, who were traditionally lower paid and who did not have the option of this new utopia of working from home. So they were the guys that were on our mind. So how we've adapted and how we've learned a lot too, and we really have. So the thing that we did from day one is we provided support from colleagues. So whether you were on furlough or whether you were in the business, we made sure that every week somebody called to check in with you, to do a one-to-one with you, and just, even if it was just to chat about the weather or something on TV or a book you've read, that there was no longer than a week where people weren't being spoken to and had this opportunity to share how they were feeling and whether they needed any support. As I've mentioned before, there were pay cuts for the higher paid, which fully funded the 90% of usual pay that we made furloughed colleagues up to. We started to communicate via video. So myself, Donald, and our colleague Neil got to first of all send out videos, because we felt that with everybody not being together anymore in the same base, that the best thing for us to do was put out an information video instead of something in writing, instead of posting something out. We use an online system like a business social system called Slack for Business. And what that meant was that we could post videos on there, and that immediately our colleagues could watch those either at home on the phone or from the business, and could have an update on how we were performing, what we were worried about, what we were kind of doing to protect people as much as possible. And then we started to have a bit of fun. So we did a Zoom quiz where we basically said to everybody, you're all welcome to join, but give us a tenner and that will go to charity, and we'll provide you with Prosecco to have whilst you're doing it, or popcorn or whatever you want. And we managed to raise quite a bit of money actually for the Ebony and Ivory Community Organisation. We did coffee mornings, we did silly quizzes, we did jokes of the day, we talked about what people were reading or watching, and we weren't wholly focused on business, because what we knew was important to people was just to talk and have some interaction. And sad stuff too. There were occasions where, you know, we did coffee mornings weekly, and there were occasions where people were obviously impacted by what was going on with coronavirus, whether that was someone dear to them that had it, or, you know, or they were just anxious because of everything that was going on and not understanding it. And we acknowledged that, and we supported each other with it, and just created a really lovely online community where previously we'd been face to face and really kind of close to each other. We recreated that in the best way that we could through online or phone, and just making sure that we kept in touch with people. We also supported colleagues with their mental health and well-being. We were dead lucky that before the lockdown, and funded through the Growth Company, actually, we were able to offer training to absolutely anybody in our business who wanted it on mental health and well-being. And over 2/3 of our people took up that training. And what it means for us is that now we've got 2/3 of our people that have the skills and techniques of a mental health first aider and can support each other. So rather than us having 1 or 2 designated people that they go to and that signpost them, there's now, 2/3 of our workforce is 40 of us that can do that. We quickly did a full COVID risk assessment, and we also got an external person in to check that with us and to make sure that we'd covered everything we could, so that when we were ready to return people safely. And then we made another video, and we sent that out to people to say, here's your building, here's what it looks like now we've made the change and the changes, and you just have a look and tell us if you think we've missed something, and let us know if we need to change anything. And people got to see that, and we also trained people via Zoom as well on what was kind of happening and what to expect when they returned to work. I think a lot of people would have been quite daunted at that point about what does it look like and what am I going to have to do. So we made sure that before they stepped foot inside the building, and actually before we even talked about dates, that we covered that on training. And we asked people, all of our people, give us your marks out of 10 for how you feel about returning to work on a, like, how scared are you? So 10 if you're absolutely terrified and you can't bear the thought of coming in, and 0 if you're not bothered and you're really happy about it and you've not got any worries. And we asked everybody that question, and the worst score we got by far was a 4 from one of our colleagues who was feeling a little anxious, and she has returned to work really safely and happily, and he's just really happy and relieved to be back in. We also sourced masks for colleagues as well. So if they're doing the shopping or, the things that they needed masks for, we provided those to all of our colleagues, but we also provided them to our customers with orders so that they could safely run their shops, and to the community. And I know, Simone, you've really helped us to sort of distribute those into the community as well. And we've recently done some work with Pure Innovation. So we felt a bit sad really that we could no longer do the stuff that we used to do with Pure Innovations, which was group tours for students to kind of have a look around the business, to see meet some of our colleagues and see some of the roles that they do. So what we decided to do actually was we have started to do some work on a one-to-one basis, and we have a student from Pure working with us now each week on work experience. And so essentially, with some sensible changes and with us tackling it a little bit at a time, our happy team is back together. And excitingly, because obviously it's been a scary time, the business is returning as well. And we, so far, fingers crossed, we've had a really successful season. So final thoughts then. Donald, I think this is over to you.
Thanks, Nick. There's a couple of things. So on profit share, our average minimum profit share for the past 5 years has been just over £2,000 each, and pay 80% at Christmas, because that's when the families need it most. And what Nick didn't say is that I won the joke contest. Get a prize.
Oh, please don't.
Here it is. He's ready. What's the difference between a hippo and a Zippo? One's heavy and one's a little lighter. What's not to like about that?
Oh, that's a relief. That's not the one I thought you were going to do.
Anyway.
Did he keep the clean one, Nicola?
He did, yeah. Well done, Donald.
I won't talk about KFC, Nick. Anyway, so when you sort of in leadership, you look for people to be inspired by, and there's lots we can learn from politicians. So when I'm trying to decide what to do, often what I think is, what would the leaders do? What would Donald Trump do? What would Boris Johnson do? What would Michael Gove do? And then I do the opposite, because whatever path they're taking us down, the opposite is the best route to take. So we can learn a lot from those, I think, really. So the lessons that we learn by doing the opposite, we can learn a lot from Jacinda Ardern, actually, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. She's amazing, absolutely fantastic. And no coincidence that the political leaders that have best handled the pandemic have all been female. So show care, tell the truth, and couldn't they do that actually today and yesterday? Be really clear. Because on our weekly videos with our colleagues, the one thing that they asked was for us to clarify what is it that the government were talking about every night at like 6 or 7 o'clock, because they didn't understand it, and that's because they were just unclear. We can learn obviously about resilience and confidence, learn about risks as well. But the most important lesson that we've learned, what we live by and what everyone should live by, is if in doubt, be kind. Thanks for letting us share our story. We've done it because Simone asked us, and we think she's brilliant. And we really want to do more in the community as well. So that's why I don't know how relevant it was. I don't know what you thought of it. But in your answer, try to be kind, because, you know, we did our best.
We tried really hard.
No, that was brilliant. Thanks so much. Nick, would you mind just stop sharing your screen so we can see? Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, that was fantastic. And I think there's that thing, isn't there, that whether you're a business or you're a voluntary community sector, it's kind of how do you do what you do in the best interests of the people that you serve, whether they are your colleagues or whether they are people who access your services, your customers. And I think there's kind of a lot of cross-learning about that, is, you know, because a lot of the voluntary community sector do have employees, and they also do have volunteers, and we all want to recognise the people that we're working with. But I think, again, what I love about you guys is that I know Nick will often email me and say, random requests. You always start saying, I've got a bit of a random request. And we can usually find a way, can't we, to figure it out. And that's kind of how the quiz stuff started. So Rowlandson, because they do schoolwear, a lot of your CSR is around supporting young people, and I think it was actually how do we direct the money that we'd created in this new way that we're now doing digital quizzes to the local community. So, you know, I think I take my hat off to you, because I think a lot of businesses feel like they've got to know all the answers and they've got to know everybody and they've got to know where to send it. And actually there's people in the voluntary community sector who can help them to figure some of that out. So I love that you reach out with that. And we still have some masks as well to distribute. So if there are voluntary community sector groups on the call who would welcome some, I know a few of you have had some already, just give me a shout around that and we can sort that. So thank you very much. As anyone, we are running short of time, so I'm tempted to leave the questions till the end, unless anyone's got anything really pressing. Are we all right to save it for the chat later? Yeah. I'm going to give everyone a quick 5-minute break, because you have been on quite a long time, and you might need loo breaks and coffee breaks. But if we could just say 5 minutes, so if you could come back for 1:15, then we will do the breakout rooms, and that'll give you a chance actually to speak to each other and get to know each other. So you can turn your videos off if you like, but please do come back. Hi, how are you all doing? 5 minutes isn't long, is it? Especially when you're sorting out breakout rooms. So I thought I was sorted and then a few people have left. So I've done my best. So I'm hoping that there will be a good mix of people in groups. So can everybody see what I've written in the chat about how the breakout rooms are going to be working? So depending on the room, when you go into it, there'll be a question posed to you. But the first 5 minutes is kind of introductions. You'll have a facilitator in your room just to support you to pose that question and make sure everyone gets some time. But it's kind of your opportunity really to have a chat with a few people. Again, like I said, trying to recreate what we do on tables at the Sector Connector if it was a physical event. I know a couple of people have had to drop off the call time, and you know that's a good thing for us, because what we're doing now is we're trying to recreate what we did in a room when we had lunch and we had coffee and we had things to keep people entertained. So if we need to do this in a shorter space of time, if we need to do it a bit differently, please feed back to us. We'll tell you a bit more at the end, but Henrika and her team will be sending out a bit of a survey monkey as well. We want to build this with you, I suppose, is the what I'm saying, so it'd be good to get the feedback. So wait until I can see a few more screens and then I'm going to ping you off. So if anyone hasn't done breakout rooms before, it's a bit like being in Doctor Who. So you are literally zoomed out and then you'll get a timer towards the end of your 20 minutes, which is how long you'll spend in your room. And you'll literally be zoomed back. So even if you're mid-conversation, you won't, it'll just send you back, so it can feel a bit strange if you've not done it before. Nobody's cutting you off mid-sentence. It literally is just a timing thing and doesn't allow for people to finish what they're saying. Oh, nice to see you, Thad. First time you've popped up on my screen. Okay, I think most people are back. What may happen to the people who haven't returned yet is they'll find themselves in a room that maybe they weren't expecting because they haven't had this bit. Now, all the facilitators will have the question that they're posing in the room that you're in, so you don't need to worry about. At the top of your room, it'll tell you what question that we want you to focus on, and your facilitator will have that question in front of them. Is there any questions before we go into rooms that are quick? No?
What question am I doing, Small?
It'll tell you on your room, Thad. So when you go into your breakout room, the header of your room will say question number, whatever. So you'll all do the introduction bit, which is the part one, and then a question. And you'll also have, you should, if it works, have a clock in your room that tells you that the 20 minutes is ticking down. So literally 5 minutes intro and then into your question. Is that okay? Right, as I said, you will be beamed out any second, hopefully. Okay, so you've had your 20 minutes in the room, hoping that was a useful way for you to meet some people and that you met some people that you didn't know before. I would hope to hear from a couple of the facilitators, just a bit of feedback about some key themes that came up in your room. So you all had a different question. So if we go to Ryan, your room and Claire's room were given the same one. So how have people been working differently and digitally? And your participants were sharing some stuff around that, hopefully.
Yeah, no, they were, and it was quite interesting. So I hope they don't mind mentioning names, but it was myself, Beth, and I'm looking for them. Can I find them? No, I think they vanished. Maybe they've had to go. I can't remember her name, from the APS group.
Laura.
Laura, yeah. Oh, there we go, right in front of me as well. How did I miss you there? So it was quite interesting that we spoke about how we, as organisations, kind of took a little bit of a backward step and then thought, right, we can do this digitally. So, you know, Beth was talking about some of her work with young people and how they're now on Zoom and some of the challenges that you presume that young people will be better with technology, but what they're actually good with is a smartphone and maybe not a laptop. Around. For me, I tend to be helping older people get online. So they were up for the connecting and the socializing aspect of it, but didn't have a laptop. So, you know, kind of two sides of the same coin. But then alternatively, in our group, we had Anne and Angela. So Anne is the chair of a group up in High Lane, I think, to do with parks and green spaces. And obviously for a lot of their activities, it's just come to a halt. And they have tried to use Zoom, but it wasn't very successful. So they relied a little bit more on Facebook. And then Angela, again, has kind of been looking at the fundraising side of things for the Wycliffe Church. And again, adopting digital, looking through funding databases, which is probably a little bit different to what she was doing beforehand. And then we were just speaking right at the end there as we came out around this idea that because people have got a smartphone and have got a Facebook account, you think they're online. So, you know, and I said that I can speak about 2 sentences in Spanish. If you walk past me and hear me ask for 2 beers, you might think I speak Spanish, but I don't. I can ask for 2 beers and 2 ice creams, and that's about it. So there's this misconception that you see somebody with a smartphone and Instagram open and you think, oh, they must know what they're doing. And actually then when all of a sudden you have to adopt online, it's not always as simple as it looks.
Yeah, that's really, really important. And I think there is this thing, isn't there, with young people in particular, that we expect that they are whizzes at it and they know, but they know what they know. They know how to TikTok and tweet to them. Well, they don't even tweet, do they? And Snapchat is the thing. But, you know, when you come to learning online and doing tasks online, it's a very different setup.
I think it's a bit almost horses for courses. Like a colleague of mine, I was asking him to Google who somebody was, and he was sat at his laptop and he got his phone out of his pocket and started Googling it. I said, why did you not go into Google on your laptop? And he said, oh, it's quicker on my phone. And I said, no, do you know how to do it on your laptop? And he's like, oh, I wasn't really sure, I just thought it'd be easier on my phone. And he's in the same school year as me, so he's, you know, I'm 30 a week today, so that's how old he is, and he couldn't Google something on a laptop. But most people would look at him and think, oh, of course he would know how to do that.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, doesn't it, about assumptions, not making assumptions that anybody can do anything, and helping them, even just those bits that Claire did at the beginning about changing your name, and how many of them have been on Zoom calls and maybe still don't know that. And it's lovely, Laura, to have Laura from APS, because we usually, APS Group are another amazing business in Stockport. Massive, aren't you? A lot bigger. People don't even know about it. I used to have this conversation with Lynn about, you're so big, you're like one of the largest employers in Stockport. And yet...
About 900, I think, overall, but that's kind of spread out.
Yeah, and yet we don't know you very well. And Lynn has been great at some... events. In fact, she spoke at the one with Project Inc. I think our very first one at Stockport County. So she's been with us from the beginning. So it's fabulous to have you along. Thanks for joining. Claire, did you have anything extra to add? Question.
Because a couple of our organisations, so Forward, which is with Tina, and the Cherry Tree Project, which is Rachel, they were both kind of very new organisations when sort of lockdown kicked in. So for Tina, she was saying kind of like originally, it wasn't a case of we're doing these things and then we've got to stop doing them or find a way of doing them differently. It was more about, okay, how do we get started? Because obviously she sort of started up as a new organisation, chomping at the bit, dead excited, and then all of a sudden no one's allowed to go anywhere, no one's allowed to do anything, which is really not what you had planned. For Rachel and her husband Nigel became Facebook famous. As the Cherry Tree Project's Fit and Fed, which was absolutely amazing, and tell Nigel that I do still cook my cherry tree curry from time to time. So that was like a completely different thing and a different opportunity. Whereas organisations like Signpost for Carers, they already had something in place, so they had to change what they did and to try and find sort of different ways to sort of still support people and do things differently. I think that's covered it. I wasn't sure I was supposed to make notes and I didn't.
No, that's fine. And I think, Rachel, your project at Cherry Tree was just for me like a gem in my stone of you know, something fun to do on a Friday. And what I loved about that as well was you just gave it a go. You didn't know what you were doing at first, as we'll attest to some of those early Facebook events. But any of you don't know, the Cherry Tree Project started a cook-off online on a Friday for families in the Cherry Tree estate in Stockport, which gradually grew to us getting our Wave of Change ladies involved, to different parts of Stockport being involved. How many did you have cooking at the most, Rachel? You're on mute. Yeah.
We started at 15, and by the final week, so I think it was 26 weeks in total. By the final week, it was 160. But I mentioned before in the group that one of the people that we work with was through Our Time Stockport, and they're paying for it from now on. So in October half term, they've automatically funded 150 families. So that's enough food for 4 people. But well, you saw big portions. We like to eat well. But yeah, so there's a minimum there for enough for 4 people. And they've said that if we have extra families, they'll pay for the extra as well. So yeah, keep an eye out if you're not on the page. We will be cooking again.
It's brilliant. I definitely recommend it.
The last Friday of October. The recipe will be going on this week.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You should all have a go if you haven't. That should be a thing to be in a Stopfordian now. You have to have had a cook-off with the Cherry Tree. Okay, so can we move to the next group, which was Henrika and Lee's. So you had question 3, which was digitally, what has worked well and what's not worked so well?
Well, I think we concentrate on what's worked well.
Okay, great. That's good.
Now, so yeah, so Ben was giving us a quick whiz on Facebook Live and how it works, and yeah, it's not something that I've used before. I know that you have, but yeah, just trying new things, I guess. Also, Marie was saying how for the Read Easy project that she does, she would have probably done the normal thing, posters, put it in the paper, things like that, to try and get new pioneers, new volunteers for them. But now she's gone into the world of Twitter.
Yeah.
So that's something that you wouldn't have done before. Anything else? Donald was saying just about being more prepared and planning forward a bit more, whether it's online or in any other way. It's just highlighted that we need to look a bit further afield, and because we don't know what's going to happen, but you have to have plan A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, for me as well, we seem like we're in this new stuff together, so it feels a bit more forgiving. It's like Claire's dog going off and my washer in the background before, and you know, and you're starting to see in people's homes, aren't you, and their lives and their kids running past, and it's like actually we're all a lot more accepting than maybe we would be at work if we're expecting a certain level of professionalism. Once you're at home, that's kind of gone out the window. so I do think there is a lot to learn together around all this. Right, Thad, you're the final one, and your question was digitally, what have been key learnings for your organisation and what will you keep?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the positives that's come out of COVID-19, the ability for the voluntary and public sector to be quite agile and innovative, and it's really advanced some of the digitally based solutions that we've been looking for rapidly. I was joined by Rising Stars, Heaton Norris Community Centre, the Youth Council and TPA. Rising Stars, a lot of the stuff they do is online, but they do like to do the live events. So one of the things that they did quickly was to let presenters present at home. So they applied for funding for some microphones so that they could carry on presenting, because I think for about 3 weeks they just had music playing. So then they could actually reach their audience through presenters that people knew about and was looking forward to listening to, by letting them broadcast from their own home. So that was somewhere that they're gonna keep, because it allows people to be able to participate that might not be able to get into that space. And a lot, I think that was what was coming through, that accessibility. And if we looked at Heaton Norris and the work they did too, so Heaton Norris, and it was actually what Nadia highlighted was really important, because she talks about digital inclusion, but she also mentioned that the art packs as well, so that people could actually participate in the projects that they were running. So it was almost that, yes, you know, people needed to get online and it was really important, but they also needed the provisions to be able to carry out the projects. Now for Nadia at Heaton Norris, what they're going to be doing now is they have a virtual online girls club, and they have one that takes place at the youth centre as well. So they've almost doubled the amount of activity available for young people by having that online opportunity. The final one was a youth council, Stockport Council, and what they're going to do when we eventually do get back to normal, they're always going to have a dial-in option for people. So, you know, we do evening meetings or afternoon meetings, so they can reach even more people. And I think that's what was coming through. It was that accessibility and that choice. And I think that was really important too, that choice for people. Unfortunately, Mark Emery was unable. There he is. He went offline.
Yeah,
so
we
I
got you back.
GPA.
I got cut off, sorry.
I think
shall I just come in?
Yeah, go on, Mark. Yeah, if you've got something to say.
Well, just basically to echo what was said, that obviously we've had to change work drastically because of the lockdown, and coming onto Zoom's been helpful to keep in contact with people. But what we have learned, as well, is that some people don't like meeting people face to face because of the social anxiety. So the groups we have set up, we're going to continue to deliver once lockdown's lifted, to encourage people then to come out into the community, because you'll meet people first on Zoom and then hopefully build a confidence up. And a couple of guys have said that to us, because we started a walking group and we first met on here chatting about what we're going to do over the few weeks, and then when we could, we all went out and it worked out really well. So that's something we have learned.
I think that's really important, Mark, because with this, you've got the choice, haven't you, of hiding your picture if you don't want to. And it's all smaller steps, and it almost adds another step for people before they take that big brave stride into you know, a classroom setting or a community setting or going out for a walk. It's fantastic. To be honest, it's been absolutely brilliant, the stuff I've got, and it's filled me with confidence for the next round of funding, which will be in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think it's that thing, isn't it, that the voluntary community sector in particular are so needed now. And if it wasn't for some of these groups that are online, or, you know, I certainly know with the Wave of Change that we run, some of the women literally would have spoke to nobody. And, you know, that can't be allowed to happen. So all, you know, the ways that we connect and making sure that we're still able to, and I know Julia at Signpost for Carers has got her work cut out with, you know, the massive number of full-time carers who are now at home all of the time. So on top of being in isolation, they're also caring for people full-time. You know, that's a massive responsibility, and the more we can do to make it accessible, you know, the better, and supporting each other to do that, whether you're a business, a voluntary community group, or the public sector. I think bringing together our learning is key, and the support side. So rather than me wittering on, because we are running over for time, I'd like to now hear, if possible, from Lee and Ryan, just really, and that's what we're saying about actually, yes, there's all this great stuff going on, but actually if we are struggling a bit, or there's things that we need to do, what help and support is out there, and what's currently happening to develop this movement further.
Yeah, is it okay if I just share my screen?
Yes,
absolutely.
Okay?
So do let me know when you can see that.
We've got it, yeah.
Great, lovely. Okay, so first of all, I was just going to ask Laura actually from APS. Is APS the same as Make More Possible?
Yeah, that is us.
That is you. Well, thank you very much. You guys designed our logo for us.
Oh,
Did you
okay.
know logo? I didn't know if you knew
You're
that.
welcome.
A couple of years ago, we
Oh,
went to a local firm for that. So there's a connection straight away.
Great.
So that's good to put a face to that. Yes, I'll just tell you a little bit about Did You Know, so you know how you can tap into it to help you or to help you reach your client base, and also what you can kind of do for the rest of the Alliance. So you're here today, so the chances are you probably know what digital exclusion is, but just to kind of briefly go over that, as Ryan said earlier, we think about 1 in 5 people are not able to get online at the moment in Stockport, and that could be because they haven't got the right digital skills and confidence, they haven't got the kit connectivity, or it could be that they just don't see the benefits of getting online, although that has changed quite a lot, I think, since COVID, and suddenly people have needed that to stay connected. And why that matters is because it's not just about the tech, as I'm sure you know, it's about quality of life and equality as well in our borough. So people who haven't been able to be online during COVID in particular haven't been able to find work, probably because more jobs are posted actually online, and you actually need to kind of complete forms online as well. And if you have been working, you may have lost your job because you can't work remotely. If you're a parent, you might have found it hard to support your child through continuing to learn when the school's closed. And you probably haven't been able to support them to stay safe online as well if you're not that familiar with the technology yourself. And it's really easy to become isolated if you can't keep in touch with friends, family, and all the activities around you are kind of being cut off. And quite often we've been finding people have been losing their independence, because one of the reasons for not being online for older people is quite often because they prefer to go about their business day to day, actually meeting people when they go to the bank or when they go to the grocery store. So suddenly having to shield and not having, you know, ability to connect online means they've actually lost their independence. They can't do all those things, and that can really knock confidence as well. And there's loads of other opportunities that are available online that you'd never even know about if you're not in that space, in terms of just saving money. If you're wanting to shop around for utility bills, people online save on average over £350 a year just from changing utility bills through Uswitch or Compare the Market and things like that are online. Okay, to the next slide. Okay, so these are just some of the organisations, the logos who have joined the Alliance. So this is like-minded people, basically, who feel that we don't want people to be left behind in Stockport. It's not acceptable for anyone to be left behind, which is what possibly could happen with more and more services going online. So we've got about 40 people who are part of 40 organisations who are part of the Alliance, and we call it the Did You Know Alliance, but you may also have heard of it as the Digital Inclusion Alliance. Those names are kind of interchangeable. And as you'll see from the logos, they range from businesses such as the Nationwide, Lloyds Bank, etc., community groups, charities, not-for-profits, council, obviously as well, because the libraries are a big part of helping people to get online, etc., etc. What these organisations do tend to have in common, though, as well as the belief that they don't want to leave anybody behind with digital, is that they've got a physical presence in our communities. We know that the people who are socially excluded are often those who are also, the people who are digitally excluded are often socially excluded too. So they're people who maybe haven't maybe, you know, got a job, or they're on low employment, haven't got huge amounts of money, they might be older and isolated, they might have some kind of impairment, barriers basically that stop them from doing things as easily as everybody else would, and they may therefore not be as likely to go onto like further education or other places to kind of learn if they want to learn how to do things digitally. And that's why having trusted faces in local places, as we say, people would come to you. They'd come to you as an organisation. So it might be that you just pick up on people who happen to say that they can't do things or they're feeling lonely. And that's really important that you know then what to potentially do with that person. If you can't actually help them directly, you might be able to signpost them to Starting Point or to another organisation, anybody on this kind of list there who might be able to help. But we also try and ask those who are involved to build digital into their social mission as well. So that could be done in a number of ways. So for example, if you were a bank, for example, it could be they've seen about 60% increase in people going to online banking during COVID. So it could be what they're doing is running sessions to help people stay safe online so that they're less open to online fraud, so they can protect their finance, manage and protect themselves online. It could be if you're running a cookery session, it could be something as simple as suggesting and helping people find recipes online or where they can locate ingredients and things like that. Or if you're from the Prevention Alliance or Citizens Advice, who are currently partners with us, they help by working in more restorative ways. So rather than just giving people the information they need, they show them how they found that information, how to know whether to trust certain websites or not, so they can find information for themselves in the future. So that's what we mean by building digital into your social mission. Okay, I'll move on. Actually, before I move on, what I would like you to do actually is to have a think. I won't ask you to shout out anything now, but have a think about your own organisation and how you might be able to build digital into your own mission. What are the things, the connections that you could make there? So have a think about that, and we'll come back to that in a moment, because I just want to show you some of the range of things that we've been doing since COVID. I mean, the Digital Inclusion Alliance has been running for the past 2.5 years, but we've stepped up and changed our offer during COVID. And this is an infographic actually of what we've done since March, although I think this one was actually only was compiled in July, so it was only like the first couple of months what we'd done. So you'll see in the top right hand corner that we've that was Starting Point mainly with this one, has provided remote one-to-one support learning sessions for people and retrained up digital champions so they can do that. But other groups have been helping as well. So for example, the one just below that, where we say 17 voluntary organisations have been helped with Zoom. Organisations, Starting Point have been helping voluntary sector organisations who hadn't been able to reach their client base when their doors shut, and they were finding they wanted to still be able to reach them and offer some level of support. So we've helped them get online and help reach their people. So that's one changed new thing that we've been doing. We've also been working with Futures.now, and Age UK have been working with Connect 2020, and we've also been working with the Department for Education to get out laptops and tablets and Wi-Fi devices to school children's care homes, all sorts of people who have needed them. So the type of support that we're giving has changed, and that's broadly because of the feedback that we've been receiving from organisations such as yourselves, who tell us what is needed and what is what we should be doing to help. And one of the most recent things that we've set up, Starting Point have actually set this up through funding from the Stockport Local, set up a new digital device lending library. It's only been running for a couple of months, but in that short time, these are just some of the examples. Hopefully that's big enough for you to read some of the examples of the people who we've helped and how we've helped them through getting them a device and connectivity as well. So it's just for a short period of time till they can find out whether the device is right for them, if it's a benefit to them, to help so that they know whether it's worth investing in buying something themselves. But the length of lending period is flexible. and it comes with support as well. So it's not just here's a device, now you're off on your own. It comes with the support to get online, stay safe online, to transact and do things online. Okay, and so basically, yeah, going back to that question I asked you all before, have a think about how you would add digital into your mission. And I challenge anyone who says I can't think of what we do. I think there's probably so many different things. So if anyone wants to pop anything in the chat or shout up, do feel free to kind of say how you think you can build digital into your social mission. And if there are things you'd like to do, but there are barriers that are stopping you, for example, you say, no, I'd love to do something, but we haven't got microphones, or I'd love to do something, but we haven't got iPads, or we'd love to do something, we haven't got the space or the connections, or we can't promote something. Again, do let me know. And these are the two key places for you to reach out to us. So there's my email address on the screen. If you're interested in joining, want to tell me what your barriers are, anything like that, do drop me a line. Or if you have people who you would like to refer in for digital support, then there's the Did You Know helpline number there as well. And did anyone have any thoughts or anything spring to mind?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm just currently building an app called Hyper, HYPEER. It's like hyper, but with the peering. It's a wellness app that really encompasses everything we do digitally, all our digital platforms that we've created, the digital radio, the live shows that we do, and educational packages, and then it also encompasses like personal pages that one can create themselves, kind of like a Facebook, but more pointed towards community and digital inclusion and being peer led as well. I'm really looking to build a team around the app and develop it and source out funding. You know, I also want to get a whole ton of iPads to put into educational spaces, community spaces, recovery spaces. So it's a huge project that I'm undertaking. We've got some really cool members of the team. There's a lot to ask, but I'd love to maybe have a meeting about this. Would that be possible?
Yeah, definitely. Because what I'd say is it's probably best not to do anything in isolation, because as you've seen, digital reaches kind of into everything, doesn't it? And if we all know about what other facilities and services are available, then we can become greater than the sum of our parts. You know, with everyone linking in across Stock Portal, because you know, at Starting Point and at other places, they'll have written certain basic things to help people get online, and people are at different stages, aren't they? So some people might be completely turned off by all of those techie appy type things that you're talking about and Facebook Live, but other people will love that, and that will be the hook in for them, won't it? So I think it's making sure we've got a wide range of stuff to appeal to everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so do drop me an email. That would be fantastic.
I'll drop you an email. No, thank you, Lee.
That's great. And yeah, hope it was useful. Just to let you know, we are changing, not changing, we're adapting and growing who's part of Did You Know all the time. And for example, we just now have Co-op Bank Digital Bees have just joined us as well, and they kind of are really keen to offer out to businesses or voluntary sector some of those kind of technical skills if you want to promote your organisation or increase sales or whatever it is that you want to do. They can offer things like search engine optimization sessions, how, you know, little tips on how to do things like that, or how to promote things on social media. So we're trying to cover things from various different angles, but if we have feedback from you about what it is that you need, then we can target the right organisations to join us, and the right support can be provided for you. So yeah, do please share. I'm not just saying that, do please get in contact with myself or Ryan. You can get through to Ryan via the helpline if you need to, or just email me. And it'd be lovely to start a conversation. Thank you.
That's brilliant, Lee. Thank you. Ryan, would you mind stop sharing that, Lee, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Ryan, is there anything you want to add on the back of that in terms of the digital lending library and support that's available at Starting Point, or do you think it's been said?
So I'll be really quick. So just that, you know, kind of our role within DigiKnow is as the community ambassador. So part of my role is supporting these community groups with taking those first steps to being online, so that we can help other people take those first steps to being online. So, you know, Ben dropped me a message in the chat about, you know, thinking about digital funding. So if it's anything to do with, you know, what the logistics like of doing a session, how do you get digital champions? You know, if you're thinking of running a session and it needs funding, we can try and support you with writing bids. You know, and then the lending library, Ben saying about trying to get devices into places. We've got a pool of devices that are able to be loaned out to people, as Lee said, quite flexibly, but for at least a month at a time, to allow these people to work out, does that tablet work for them? If it does work, we're hoping to work with the credit union to try and offer a safe place for people to be able to save a little bit of money towards being able to hopefully own their own device at the end of some of this work. So there's trying to the real sustainability to it, so that that digital's able to bring people along and not leave people behind. So yeah, do get in touch, that digital helpline, and we can carry on this conversation there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I've got quite a lot of links to share, which we'll send out to you after, rather than wasting time with me looking at a PowerPoint with lots of links on that. I can just send you in an email. But again, it's terms of, from a voluntary community sector, sometimes it's about connecting the dots, so it's not always about that we understand what's available and how to then get that thing. So Sector 3 is a support organisation that I do a bit of work with, that supports the whole of the voluntary community, faith sector, social enterprise sector in Stockport. So again, if it's a generic question and you're not sure if it's digital or how it fits with digital, you know, approach me, and we can figure out where that dot connecting needs to work up. And Ryan will know that I've sent a few referrals through that actually seem like they're for you rather than for Sector 3. And I think it's making sure that we know what's out there and that we're working together to find the local solutions. And there is also some links on the that I've put together for the business side of it. So in terms of the business innovation vouchers for digital, the support through the Business Growth Hub if you fit their criteria for accessing support, the support through the council business team. So there's lots of things out there, but I think the big problem often is finding what that is without us all having to feel like we're on a 12-week research mission. So I'll send that out to you following this. Ryan, we were going to do a bit of an interactive bit now to see if we could get people's views about what, so we usually do at Sector Connector an offers and an asks, which is if you have something to offer support for, so it might be actually I'm interested in some employees at my workplace being digital champions, how do I find out about that? Or I'm interested in providing some masks, as Rollington have, or it might be that you've got an ask, actually I'm really struggling with this, is there anyone that can help me? We're not saying that we'll be able to solve that today, but if we know what people have got to offer and we know what people are struggling to find, again it helps with some of that dot connection of fitting that together. And also people like Thad, who have the Stockport Local Fund, can kind of see where the gaps are and where we're not finding that we're able to connect those things up. So this is another test now to see if Ryan can get his interactive board going.
So what I'm going to do is in the chat panel, there there is going to be a link to something called a Jamboard. So it's effectively a online virtual flip chart paper that we can all put things on. So if I go to everyone and then paste the link, there we go. So if you tap on that link that's just appeared in the chat panel, you will land on a Jamboard. And I can see people joining. So how it works is at the top where it says Sector Connector 21st of October 2020, you'll see there's two overlapping rectangles. It says 1 of 2. So there are 2 slides. The first one is what can you offer to other organisations at this event? And the second one says, how can other organisations help you? What do you need? It's that idea of offers and asks. And then down the left-hand side, I've got a toolbar. And what you can do is the 4th one down looks like a little post-it note. You could click on the post-it note. You could then type in, so what can we offer? So starting point, we can offer support with anything digital, and then press save, and the post-it note will appear on the board, and you can stick it on there. You might want to put the name of your organisation, actually, otherwise we won't know who it is offering what. Can everybody see that post-it note that's on there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what we've got time-wise, but if people want to work their way through both these screens, fill in the post-it notes, drag and drop them around,
yeah, we've got
answer those questions.
We've got about 5 minutes to do that. So if you want to kind of put things that you can offer, things that you can ask, save general questions for the chat, and put those in the Zoom chat, because what we'll do with that is we'll save that chat. So this is just an offer and ask for board at the moment. Can everyone access it? Yeah.
Actually, I'm struggling accessing it. I'm on my phone. I'm just downloading the app now.
Oh yeah. So depending on what kind of what Apple device or what Google device you're on, tablet or smartphone, it doesn't always, for those on laptops, it kind of just jumps you straight in, which is obviously really useful. But if you're not, then yeah, there is the potential you might have to download an app. It does work quite quickly once you get on there.
Ben, do you want to tell us, and we can stick it on if there's anything you want?
Oh, what would you like from me? Just something what I can offer, is it?
Yeah, if there's a specific offer or a specific ask that you have.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe we can. Yeah, we can offer. I don't know, some tips on using Facebook Live. How's that? There you go. I wouldn't mind doing a masterclass on how to use Facebook Live. So there you go. You can have that one.
That would be brilliant, Ben. I might take you up on that for a Sector 3 workshop. There you go, see? Offer and ask connected.
Take me up on it, and we'll, I should keep my mouth shut, shouldn't I, Simone?
It's all about giving as well. And I think that's why we always...
Of course it is.
We always kind of do...
It's the 5 ways to well-being.
Yeah, and this is why we kind of always do the asks and the offers, because I think when we first started off, it was the businesses who felt like they had to give and the voluntary community sector were there to take. But actually what's been quite surprising is the voluntary community sector have a lot to offer each other, but also they have a lot to offer businesses. You know, we've had people offer equality and diversity training. I remember at our very first one, there was a business sat next to Walthew House who support people with visual and hearing impairment, and they offered to come in and help to support one of their hard of hearing employees, and that was kind of a real turn of events, that it was the voluntary community sector helping businesses, not the other way around.
Simone, will we get a copy of all of these?
Yes, we will do our best to make that happen, Marie. Even if I have to take a photo of it on my phone. Ryan, is there a way for us for you to save that and get it through to us?
Yeah, so Jamboard is actually just linked with Google. So it's a Google piece of software. So every Jamboard I've ever created, when I go into my Google account, there's a little Jamboard section. So they're all there. So I've got those and I can print screen them and then share them with people afterwards.
Great. And I noticed Steve's come back. If you can hear us, Steve, we just followed that link on the Jamboard and we're just putting offers and asks. But if you're on a phone, you might not be able to do that. So if you want someone to add something, you can put it in the chat.
Got that. Thank you. I'll have a look at that.
Yeah,
Cheers,
no
Ryan.
worries. And again, I suppose it's one of those things that it's showing you another tool that you can use with people in your events. So if you do want to make it a bit more interactive and you do want to get their opinions about stuff, the chat can get a bit confusing. It can feel a bit stale. So it's kind of another way to kind of liven up online workshops. And I'm sure one of the offers might be that Ryan will do a session about this with you.
I was just about to say that there's a couple of different ways you can kind of jazz up workshops on Zoom with things like polls and word clouds and Jamboards. So yeah, I'll stick that on, something we can.
Brilliant, thank you. So it's great to see there's loads of things going on there. Right, so we'll just have a couple more minutes on that. And then just really the last 5 minutes kind of coming back together to talk about you know, what you'd like to see from a future one. I have done a little poll, but I'll wait till the Jamboard's sorted before I send any more things your way, just to kind of see, you know, whether it's been useful to make connections today, and also what you'd like to see at a future one of these, because I'm kind of the feeling that there's probably not going to be a physical sector connector for some time, and if we want to keep these going, you know, how do we make sure that they're tailored to what you need?
There's a few asks on there, but I don't know which organisations they're from.
Okay. So if you've put an ask on the board, could you go back to your post-it and just add who you are? That'll help us to coordinate. Okay. Is everyone happy with that, or do you need more time?
No, I think.
Okay, right, all right. So I'm going to now try, this is a first for me, to do a poll. So it should come up on your screen, and there should be 2 questions. One will be around the connections that you've made today, and the other will be about future sector connectors. So just let me know if you can see that. Everyone see it?
I can see it.
Great. And if you want to set up your own polls in Tools, because I've been figuring this out, it's in the settings before you make meetings. So when you've got your admin panel on, there's a way to set up polls, and you can set up the questions either pre, which is what I did, because you know what you're trying to ask, or you can do it during and you can write them in. It's just a way for us to gather a bit of feedback. Okay, has everyone had a chance to vote? Who wants to? Right, I'm going to take a picture of that because I've not done it before. So we're learning as we go. I want to make sure I definitely capture the things, and I'm not sure where it saves it. Okay, perfect. Right, so I'm going to end polling. Okay, yep, so here we go. I can share the results with you. So have you made any new connections today? Yes, one new connection. 57% of you said 2 to 4, and 14% felt you'd met more than 4 new connections. That's brilliant. And what you'd like to see covered at a future sector connector collaborations clearly comes out top 71%. So you want ways to connect more, and I think Tina's put in the chat actually you'd prefer the opportunity to get into more breakout rooms with different people, so that's something for us to think about for next time. So thanks for agreeing to take part in that. And I kind of feel like I know we've thrown a lot of stuff at you, and again I think it's how do we make it interactive without, you know, I've been on something where I just felt like I was being done to the whole time, and there was no opportunity for free thinking. So we want to make sure we create that space and create room for conversation. So I'd like to thank you very much for coming. I know Donald from Rollinson Knitwear would like to say a few words. I feel like it's an awards ceremony now, Donald, and the final closing statement goes to Donald.
Have I won the most boring award? Because I've got so many of those, I don't need any more. I wanted to say it's been brilliant and great for the community to get more involved. I think it's needed more than ever. And one of the things that people have asked me about quite recently as well is, how long is this stuff going on for? There was a feeling that from lots of people that we were over it, you know, the worst of the pandemic. And we told our bank actually that next year is going to be a lot worse than this year. But I think that's just me being pessimistic. But I just wanted to recall a famous story called the Stockdale Paradox, which is about General Stockdale, who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam. And the prisoners were going through, obviously, this dreadful period of being abused and beaten and everything. And there were 3 sorts of people. The ones that thought they just weren't going to make it. The ones with big hope who thought we'll be out by Christmas. And people like General Stockdale who said, we're going to get out, but we don't know when. But we're definitely getting out. And I think that's a thing that I'm trying to tell lots of people. This thing is nowhere near over. There's lots of false information and false hope about, you know, an immediate vaccine. I think the better prepared that everyone is for this thing to go on for a long time, the better off we'll all be, and we can plan better ahead rather than week to week or month to month. So I want to finish on that, but great work as always, Simone, and it's been our pleasure to help.
That's great. Thanks, Arnold. And thanks to everybody who's contributed today, which has literally been everyone on the call. I mean, it's a shame that we've had to turn a few people away and then people didn't turn up, but we wanted to try and make sure that, because it was a first online digital event, that we were able to manage the people coming in the breakout room. So our learning from this is that we could open up more spaces, really. So thanks for bearing with us, and hopefully it went as smoothly as possible. I will be sending out a survey monkey via the council just about the event, and to get a bit of a fuller picture of what your thoughts were and what you'd like to see. I know we did that quick poll, but is there any kind of final questions before we close for today? Thanks so much for your time. I know it's been a fairly long session.